Hi everyone, thank you for joining today and welcome to the Bitesize summary of November's Purple 365 webinar. This was held on the 16th of November 2022 in recognition of Men's Health Awareness Month and was looking at men's mental health. So the session was hosted by Charlene Overend, Purple's Head of Business Partnerships, and then we were joined by Tom Chapman, who founded the Lions Barber Collective, which is a group of international barbers that educate and raise awareness about mental health and suicide prevention. This life-saving collective has grown into a huge global network that trains barbers in barber talk training, giving other barbers the skills to listen and help customers with their mental health and suicide prevention. Tom is an award-winning barber, author, public speaker, global barber director and international educator. And it was really great to have him share his wealth of knowledge on the topic, which we will share some clips of here today. And then we were joined by Graham Major, who shared his personal lived experience with mental health struggles with us, which was extremely insightful and eye-opening. And we will again be sharing some of the clips from Graham here. So for the introduction, Charlene just kind of set the scene of why it was important to be hosting the session today and looking at the very important topic. And you can see from looking at just some of the shocking statistics surrounding men's mental health and suicide, why this session was so important. It's obviously worth noting that as with many mental health statistics, it's hard to know if figures really represent what is happening. And they can only tell us about mental health problems that have been reported, but many cases do go undiagnosed. But men's mental health is such an important and big topic to keep talking about to help break the stigma and get more men talking, as it will literally save lives. But as we can see from just some of the stats here, so one of the key ones that we looked at was the fact that 3 times as many men as women die by suicide. Men aged 40 to 49 have the highest suicide rates in the UK. 40% of men have never spoken to anyone about their mental health. And men are less likely to access psychological therapies than women, with only 36% of referrals to the NHS talking therapies being for men. And the biggest causes of mental health issues in men's lives are usually their work, finances, and health issues. So as you can see, it's something that really needs to be spoken about so that these statistics can change for the better. And with that, we then heard from Tom, who shared some fantastic training. So here is just a small clip of what he shared.
It all started back in 2014. I lost a friend of mine, Alex, to suicide, and I'd seen him just a few days beforehand. I was completely unaware that he was struggling. I saw him, had that small talk in the street. How's it going? How's everything okay? The usual chit chat that we all have with our friends or acquaintances. I found out about 3 days later that he'd ended his life. And that night I spent a sleepless 12 hours asking myself the questions, why would he do this? But also a lot of what if questions. What if I'd recognized at that moment that he was struggling? What if I'd asked him if he was suicidal? And what if he had said yes? Would I have known what to do? And at that moment in time, the answer is no. With that said, I'm going to go through the 4 pillars of the Lions Barber Collective: training, barber talk, hair and beauty talk, and now it's also been turned into a non-industry specific version of this called Here to Talk, which we delivered the first session with most recently at Hewlett-Packard Enterprises to a great response. Here we go. So recognize is the first thing that we need to do, and I think it's really important that we are aware to be able to recognize these things in people. One of the main things is, or the main thing that we decided on, is changes in behavior. And I think this is something that is often overlooked. And I think when we've done the training before, as people have said many times, they've lost someone to suicide, and that's why they're here doing the training. They didn't recognize that anything was going wrong. Yet after we completed the training, as difficult as this is, they actually said to me, I did recognize those things were going on, but I didn't act on them because I justified them to myself. So recognizing changes in behavior is essentially what we need to do. As hairdressers and barbers, we're in a good position to do that because we see people every 4 to 6 weeks. So recognizing a change in weight or a change in their demeanor is quite easy for us, because if somebody lost £2 a week for 6 weeks and then they saw us, that's £12 that we're going to notice that difference. Whereas if you lived side by side with somebody, £2 a week is not a huge loss or huge change in weight, so it's not as obvious. So as hairdressers and barbers, we are in a great position to recognize these changes in behavior, because we get to know how people's normal behavior is. But that doesn't mean that we can't all do this. We all know about our friends and family, what they like doing normally. Are they spending more time in their room? Are they socializing more than normal? Are they eating more than normal? Are they sleeping more than normal? Are they not sleeping enough? I think it's about us making sure that recognizing these small changes in behavior may be an early sign that somebody's going through something. And I think we often avoid asking questions because we're scared of the answer, or we justify "Are you okay, mate?" or "How's it going?" as a genuine question, when we all know "How's it going?" is not a question, it's a greeting that we all do every single day. And if somebody responded with how they were actually feeling, we'd be taken aback or shocked by the response. So it's about asking great questions. So we've recognized the change in behavior, and we need to ask the questions and get over our fear of not being able to know what to do if they respond poorly. So asking questions instead of "How's it going?" can be things like "How are you feeling today?" and using their name. Is think about questions that reassure that person that you want to speak to them, and they feel like they can be heard. So "How are you feeling today?" using people's names, asking them about the past and the future rather than generalizing "How's it going?" So we've asked them how they're feeling today, which is a present. How have you been since the last time we saw you? How have you been this week? How's life treating you this week? Or have you got anything coming up, or are you looking forward to anything? Asking questions at pinpoint moments in time are far more effective than asking people generally "How's it going?" Because if you ask someone that, generally everyone's doing fine. But if you do ask those questions and people are telling you a negative, it's really important that we listen. We often like to listen to a certain point, relate to it, and then tell our story. But actually, if somebody is opening up to us and telling us about something they're going through, which is actually really quite difficult, you literally don't have to say very much. It's not our role to fix and solve the problems. Things that we shouldn't say is "I understand how you feel," or "I know how you feel." And I'm sure we've all had people say that to us when we are offloading to them, and often it doesn't give us a great feeling, because no one knows how we feel. We all have our own individual experiences and upbringing and morals and beliefs, so no one will ever truly know how you feel. But instead you can say, "I don't know how you feel, but I'm here to listen to you, and hopefully I can try to understand what you're going through." And then once we have listened and they've finished, it's then our time to help that person find the help they need. So we've recognized the signs that they're struggling. We've asked them a great question, or many great questions, and they've opened up and they've told us stuff, and we've listened to them. It's then, sometimes that may be enough. Sometimes we just need to offload and be able to have that space to get out of our head. But should you need it, help to help that person is the key. So it's about keeping ourselves safe as well as them. It's about passing the ball, so we're not responsible for that person forever, because we can only do so much. Helping that person find the help they needs means signposting them to support things like hubofhope.co.uk, mypickle.org, and then all the other resources that I know that Charlene's going to send over to everybody as well. There is a lot of resources that are available, and it's very different in every area. So I encourage you to take a look out for some of them. There's great web chat options like myblackdog.com or .org, sorry. And then there's the great groups like Andy's Man Club or Dudes and Dogs in Bristol, which is just a group of guys that go for walks with dogs together, and they provide that safe space and support for one another. And also to remember, if somebody is suicidal, if it is an emergency, you can call emergency services, you can call an ambulance, you can call the police. I've had to do that in the past, and it's kept that person safe. So that is really important. You can call a family member or a friend and make a plan with that person to keep them safe.
So as you just heard, Tom really did share some hugely invaluable information. And so it's definitely worth watching the full webinar to get the full picture of everything he was saying, because it was so interesting, and I'm sure will help so many people. And then we heard from Graham Major, who shared with us his personal struggles with his mental health and how he has got to where he is today. So here's just a brief overview of what he shared with us.
So to give sort of context and background, at the time I was working for a large consulting firm, and I had quite a big job, and I think there was no signs of what was to come. But to cut a long story short, I had a meeting with a client, just as I would any kind of regular kind of catch-up meeting where you kind of jump on. And for whatever reason, I seem to remember when I walked into the room, one of my team asked me, "Do I want a cup of tea?" which wasn't unusual, but that's kind of stuck in my mind. And my response was very kind of normal, like, always, of course I want a cup of tea, always have a cup of tea. But what happened when I walked into that room and joined that Zoom meeting, I couldn't see it coming. I'd been on these Zooms, particularly with this one client, for many a week, and normally you get on, there's a bit of small talk, you jump into business, everything's good, you jump off. But for whatever reason, I decided at that point, or it was decided, however you want to look at it, that when I was asked how I was, my response was completely full of expletives, absolutely full of expletives. And in the space of kind of 10 seconds, I'd gone from being calm and, "Hi, my name's Graham," to actually bleep, bleep, bleep. And I just completely lost control. Someone then booted me off the call, as you kind of would imagine they would, to which I jumped back on the call and, in a complete rage, I wanted to kill everybody, and I was threatening all sorts, which anyone who knows me, sorry, and obviously I assume I'm the most mild-mannered person in the land. So I'd gone from absolutely normal, asking for a cup of tea, to swearing at people, to wanting to kill people, to then sobbing in the corner of a room in about 2.5 minutes. It led me to basically leave the office. It was a cold February. I had no jacket or anything, to then put my feet in the canal. And when I took my feet, probably up to my shin level, to looking around, thinking to myself, what's the best way to end this? And I wanted to go. I decided in my mind that that was the end for me. And there was a small part of me that was trying to rationalize, but actually, I was set. I was done. I wanted to end my life there and then. And it was just then a case of what would be the best way of doing it. There's two main things. I kind of, in my mind, use it like the dam analogy, that I'd got this big job and, I was taking on more and the water was hitting the dam, but obviously eventually the dam falls over. And I think there was two things: that I was taking on too much because I was successful, and in my mind, the only way to get more success was to work even harder. But then coupled with that, I was given a job, because my only solution was to work harder, not ask, because that's how I was brought up by my parents, that, you get through things by working harder. Actually, if I'd asked and shared the load, I'd like to think I probably wouldn't have got to that point where the dam fell over. So for me, it was those things. But then to your point as well, I did suppress my feelings. I didn't have any feelings. Looking back, there was no feelings. My thing was a go, 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 go. And that was my only feeling, which, looking back again, it's completely sounds now ridiculous, but it was how it was at the time. And I should, and looking back, if I could tell myself in February 2016, look out for these three things, they're the three things that I'd have told Graham at that age. It was a case of, I didn't need any medication or anything. It was a case of, we need to, at that point, reflect on very quickly why and what triggers, or what we can do to give me coping mechanisms, so in essence this doesn't happen again. So we did things like CBT. We've done things, if anyone on the call has been through therapy before, you talk about your safe place and the visualization of your safe place, and to use another analogy, the filing cabinet one, to make sure we're filing things. And it was very much in that first kind of 6 months that it was to get me in a fit state that I could perform again, because that's the motivation. I need to get back on the bike, I need to get back working.
So really interesting to hear from Graham there, and he obviously shared a lot more in the full webinar. So again, it's fully worth watching the whole thing and get the complete picture. But as you can see from just a short bite-sized overview, there were some really great conversations had, and we can't thank Tom and Graham enough for providing such an insightful session and being so open and honest. So it's very evident from everything we've heard today that encouraging men to talk will save lives. We all need to continue working to remove the stigma around men's mental health. And there are lots of charities that are tirelessly working to help change the statistics and help men's mental health. And we've put some of the links up here on the screen. So the top one is the Lions Barber Collective, which Tom is the founder of. And then there's just some other really fantastic mental health charities as well that provide lots of support. But thank you for watching today. I hope you enjoyed the bite-sized overview. If you have any questions at all about anything to do with Purple 365, you can email me at lashby@wearepurple.org.uk.